Ooh. Is it simply working? Are we simply live? Are we simply live, question mark? We are simply live on this fine Buildness Day at 9:52 a.m. I know it is not 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm sorry. It's hard to be on time. I'm figuring out the streaming schedule. Not my strength, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Buildness Day is a Wednesday, especially. And on Buildness Day Wednesdays, we build software. In particular, at this moment, this is our third day of Buildness Day, building this particular piece of software, our Stream Companion, an OBS web overlay system that we use, or that we will use, to do some fun stuff on our stream overlay here. Playing sounds, playing video clips, showing images, doing fun stuff. The kinds of fun things you'd hope that a Stream Companion would do. And because it will be Python backed, we'll easily integrate with Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, in order to pull those video streams, or in order to pull those chat streams, and for people in those chats to do fun and interesting things. I know we don't stream on TikTok yet. We don't even split stream yet on YouTube and Twitch. We're just using Restream.io. But I've got lots of bandwidth. We can upload directly to multiple sources. And I think OBS makes that makes it straightforward, but it's just going to take me a little bit of time to figure that out and take those steps. Log into all the accounts, so to speak. So what have we got going on? We got a little bit of software development. Let's take a look where we left off last time, diving right the heck in. Nice. This is our README. So we've just been developing the README. I've got an image here of the idea. That's nice, actually. It's supposed to be a robot that takes care of the OBS interactions, especially, so that I can automate them the way I like them. And OBS, it just uses the overlay endpoint as a browser source. So my program, my Python program, is generating well, originally I said a Flask website, but it's not going to be a Flask website. Can I full screen this? Shift to drop into the editor. I can attach it into different places. Can we liberate the window? Split and move, keep open, pin. I mean, we could just view it in Windows. I know how that works. Yeah, originally we thought maybe it would generate a Flask website. But increasingly, I think that... why is there a bunch of lorem ipsum? Increasingly, we decided that Flask is kind of outdated, and we'll use a new technology stack for that. What tech stack are we going to use for that? Use cases, core technologies, fast API, ASGI web server. Oh, look at that. I can double click to open up. Cool. I can double click to open up and edit things directly. WebSocket native. Yeah, fantastic. Wow. Visual Studio Code really makes it easy for me to be previewing the README and then to be editing it and updating it. Like that pipeline, it's tight. Here, the camera's kind of close. Give me a little space here. Does that work? Okay, yeah, I'm here. Nice. Right in the front end of that web overlay will be a Vue single app architecture. with Vue 3 and Vite and TypeScript, state management with Pinia for reactive state, and real-time updates provided by socket.io on the client asynchronously. Advanced animations, the kinds of things that make it spicy and fun. We'll pull those using GSAP and anime.javascript. I haven't used GSAP or anime, but they should be good. They're the leading standards. It replaces jQuery in the original implementation of this tool. Yeah, we keep the project overview very simple. It creates a web overlay hosted locally. Let's just collapse this. Which can be used as an OBS browser source to enhance the panache of your stream. Let's say, which can be used as an OBS browser source. And let's just say the project also creates an admin portal, an admin web portal, where the overlay can be managed and controlled live. Actually, use case. Let's just stick with use cases. If we want to update this, let's say use cases. One or more of the following possibly chained in a sequence together, creating a sequence of images animated across the screen. Creating an animated sequence of images and videos using predefined using media in the library or from a local file path. From a predefined file path. Playing predefined sounds or capturing from the mic and using that as a source. Triggering any sequence. Yeah, creating an animated sequence of images and videos. I think we should give that a name. Creating a new, we'll call it, these are my widgets. These are widgets. We should give these widgets a name, though. These are going to be like streamlets. It's like a what is it that? Yeah, I want a name for this. Let's get ChatGPT to help me out here. Here's a software description I want to ask questions about. Got it. Let's come up with a name for the individual templates that are created in the system. Each template has an associated management view. Each template can be instantiated one or more times. Zero or more times. And each instance has an associated management widget in the I guess we're calling it the management view. Admin. Yeah, let's come up with a name for the templates and groups of templates. For the templates, which are groups of widgets. Oh no, let's actually just do widgets. For the templates, widgets, and groups of templates. I was calling the groups of templates something very particular. I was calling groups of templates. Oh, excuse me. Ooh, chocolatey. I was calling the groups of templates like a view. Yeah. Let's come up with a name for the templates, widgets, and groups of templates, a view, that are created and managed in the system. Each template can be instantiated 0 or more times. Hold on a sec. Let's not confuse this. Templates contain each template can be instantiated 0 or more times within a group. And instances must be associated with 1 or more groups. Each instance has an associated management widget in the admin view for that for the associated group. Each group gets a tab in the admin view. This is really important language, actually. Design principle, use cases, technical architecture, yes, chat platform, web server, system requirements, feature specification. What is it I'm really talking about? I'm trying to be... Here, it's this language. About each template can be instantiated 0 or more times. Oh, excuse me. Whoa. Coffee, let's go. Making me need a pee. Let's see, this feature specification. No, I don't think it belongs there. Media rendering, animation features, dynamic overlay, management interface. Here we go. Component management. Technical requirements. Dependencies. Performance considerations. Security. Development setup. Deployment. Single instance. Future enhancements. I think what I want is in feature specification here. Performance, front end. It's not dependencies or technical. Yeah, management interface, component management. Let's just jump in here and just leave some text. Management interface. Yeah. The main units of the system. Yeah, honestly, like maybe I want this a little earlier. Main units of the system. View component types, single view application architecture, animation features, media rendering, event handling, moderation, command system. These are still great feature specifications. They don't need more plain language here. Let me grab a quick pee. Be right back. Finished my delicious coffees. Here we go. Okay, I'm back. My apologies. Yeah, you probably saw me talking, but maybe didn't hear me. My apologies. Muted. Okay, let's get some naming recommendations. You're describing 3 hierarchical building blocks of your overlay system. The atomic units, the smallest configurable entities, animations, media, and triggers. Compositions, collections of those entities that form a visual effect sequence. And views, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, visual effect sequences. We should make that more clear in our description of the project itself, right? Managed and controlled live. A variety of visual/effect sequences can be crafted using the building blocks in the system. These are, and here's where I wanted to paste in templates and groups and stuff. Let's give them names that sound modular, creative, and tech appropriate for the system. Okay, let's see here. For the building blocks, which I'm currently calling widgets, let's see. We'll call them elements. Okay, good, yeah. Web components, HTML elements, yeah, I like that. Blocks. A block would imply modularity and reusability. Yeah, I don't hate it, but it's a little esoteric to say block. Atoms, no. Modules, too esoteric again. Nodes, no. Gizmos, kind of playful. I like that. Gizmos. Gizmos is winning currently. Capsules. Fragments. Yeah, fragments suggests a lack of completeness, but you should be able to use one fragment is sufficient for a whole animation. I like gizmos. Although I think elements is very good. The system makes a good argument. It's intuitive, template elements. It works both technically and creatively. And it fits Vue's component language. Whoa, seriously? Okay, so what are we going to call the groups of widgets? Like, I thought scene was excellent. I know we're lifting OBS language a touch, but there's a reason it's so good. Templates, it's a bit generic. I totally agree. It's way too generic, dude. Compositions is a neat idea. I like the idea of a composition. Like, you write Docker files, but then you write Docker compose files, and it brings together several Docker elements. So I like composition. And it's great for timelines because it implies media and animation. That's where I'm at, composition. Sequence I love too, although sequences should be more like, you could add a sequence. You could add a sequence, right? This is such a helpful brainstorm. The most helpful part of talking to Chad about this was getting Chad to understand what I was talking about. It's helping to improve the clarity on the project definition, which is what we're going to use ultimately to define the software. So the software better understand it. Motif, kind of confusing for non-English speakers. No one says motif. A macro. I like macro. Kind of a nod to an old school system. But really, composition is my recommendation. Oh my God, we picked the same one. Composition. Let's go. Let's go, compositions. Absolutely. Oh, it feels good, yeah. And as the software user, you are the composer. The intention is that you're going to create compositions. Those compositions are made up of the building blocks or the notes. Yeah, Elements is so generic, but they are very generic. It could be anything. It could be, yeah, software hooks, a variety of things. It'd be helpful to include some of this information in the README as well, so that the language model understands what it is we've defined here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, we lost a peanut. Nuh-uh-uh. No, oh, there you are. You don't get away. Oh, no. Oh, no, I dropped it again. Picking peanuts out of the shell bowl. Oh, they are so roasted and buttery and rich. Oh, heavens. Nice. So I like elements. Elements combine multiple into a scene. Event hooks, OBS triggers. It's also going to be chat interactions or event listeners, really. It could be like sequenced event listeners or conditions. Conditional event listening. Uh, mm. Compositions, elements. It should call them elements, though. Views, dashboards. Kind of like dashboard, not going to lie. Because it emphasizes control and management. I think dashboard is correct. Collections, deck. Branded streamer style name. I don't know. Deck is silly. I don't like deck. I like dashboards. Yeah, I like dashboards. Because you build them yourself. To explain to a complete newbie what are how these three parts exist and work together. Keep your words succinct. Let's choose elements, compositions, and the last we'll call boards, dashboards. Control panels. Yeah, I'm calling them control panels. I don't want to call them views or something. They are the back end for someone who has defined them as a front end. Each element has its own configuration file. Each element performs one specific task, such as showing an image, playing a sound, animating text, or responding to a chat event. Amazing. Each element has its own configuration. Let's take this all, and then let's fix the text. We're calling it core concepts. It's not just a visual orchestra. It also plays sound. This is an audio. This is a real orchestra. Not just... I mean, maybe we'll even write an orchestra overlay, where little instruments pop out of the sides of the screen. Every time I say the word saxophone, it could just be like... Is that good? I don't think so, but we're doing it. That's a good use case too. Playing a sound whenever a specific word is triggered. Look at all the fun words I'm triggering right now. You can see the list in my closed captioning. It's fun. It's fun, for goodness sake, okay? You don't even know what fun is. Peanuts are fun. Okay, how they work together. In short, elements make the magic, compositions shape it, and control panels run the show. That's right. Yes, a simple diagram. Can I include a simple diagram? No. That's crazy talk. I'm sure it will be wrong. Let's go. Okay, we're going to copy all this text, and we'll fix it up. Project overview. It's part of design principles. These little emojis in my Vim editor, very disorienting. Not sure what to think about that. I'm going to call these design principles and core concepts. Stream Companion is built from 3 connected layers: elements, compositions, and control panels. Together, they form a flexible system for creating, organizing, and controlling your stream overlays. So bold is double star, right? Yeah. Elements are the smallest building blocks. Each element performs one specific task, such as showing an image, playing a sound, animating text, responding to a chat event, or showing a scene in OBS. Switching to a scene. Each element has its own configuration, animation settings, triggers, etc. They're defined Not just elements, but all components. Although these layers are definable, are defined in readable files, they can be fully managed through the software. Through the software. Through the admin interface. Yeah, honestly, it's straight up through the admin interface. I want to be clear about it. Elements are the smallest building blocks. Each element performs one specific task, such as showing an image. Performs one specific task. Including, such as, I guess. Showing an image. Playing a sound. Animating text. Oop. Responding to a chat event. Switching to a scene in OBS. Each element has its own configuration. Elements can react to real-world events like new followers, button presses, or chat commands. Can react to real-time events. Yeah, there we go. We need some subsets here. Design principle and core concepts. We need like 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you don't put them at the end, I see. Each element performs a specific task. No, we don't need the text around elements being metaphorically like instruments in a visual orchestra, which also makes no sense, by the way, because you can't even, you hear instruments, you don't see them. That's very interesting choices, chat. Not unlike myself. Okay. Compositions. They combine multiple elements into a coordinated effect. A composition controls timing, layout, and animation sequences. Let's make this like a bullet point list as well. Timing, layout, animation sequences. Each composition can be saved, duplicated, or customized for different overlays. Compositions are what OBS actually displays through the browser source. No, I don't think so. No, compositions... I mean, yes, compositions are what it displays through the browser source. That's correct. That's correct, yeah. That is correct, actually. Compositions are what OBS actually displays through the browser source. Think of a composition as a complete performance made from many elements working together. Yeah, it's not like a performance, though. It's like a complete sequence. But it is kind of a performance, to be honest. I kind of like that, yeah. Imagine, for example, it's like a showpiece, and it has triggers for when things are said. And then when the trigger trips, it stops. So it's basically like I can invent a chatbot that that has voting, for example, or that opens and closes polls, that has functional elements that you can interact with. Okay, and the final piece here, control panels. Control panels group related compositions together, and they let you manage them live. Each control panel appears as a tab in the admin interface. Panels organize compositions for different, let's see, each control panel appears as a tab in the admin interface. There we go. Panels organize compositions for different scenes or stream states. Each composition instance within a panel has its own management widget for quick control. That's right. It's Nanobug. Hey, happy Wednesday, my friend. How is your day going? Very chill, foggy day here on the west coast of Canada. Very chill vibes. I worked this afternoon. I even made it to the pool this morning at like 6:30 a.m. Feeling real good about that. Let's see if you can understand. It's trying to brand compositions as stream states, but that's a little oversimplified for us. Also, these weird quotation marks that we got from chat. What other weird characters are in here, I wonder? Starting soon. A poll. Gameplay. Sure. Break. Listening for keyword. I mean, listening for keywords a little on the point. Just waiting for a friend, and then you'll play some Valorant. Let's go. Jumping around first-person style. We love that.
I'll stick to my text editors, thank you very much. These are absolutely sufficient for entertainment.
I've been so addicted to Satisfactory lately, though. I just want to play it all the time. They fixed that game, man. I don't know if you, like, I know you're not really big on Satisfactory, but it used to be they had these blueprints, but the blueprints kind of sucked because they didn't like attach the belts or the pipes between the blueprints. So like if you laid two versions of the blueprint right next to each other, it doesn't like hook stuff up for you. But you need to do that constantly to build factories. And so all the time your whole job just devolves into building manifolds. Whoa, you actually have 2,000 plus hours in it? I forgot about that. Jesus, is that right? I just remember saying that you saying that you're very lazy about it, and that there's like a lot of items you're just not using or making use of. I think I over extrapolated. You got more hours than I do, that's for sure. By a margin. But do you use the auto connect? You can still play it and be lazy. Okay, fair enough. That's not what Ada told me. Ada said that I had to be as efficient as possible. She's a bitch, dude. Can I say that? I don't mean to denigrate her character, but she's just kind of like... She needs to STFU. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. What the fuck? I love how my closed captions spelled that out. STFU. That's great. Zero ambiguity. STFU. The only people telling you what to do is your wife and your mom and your boss. Yeah, relatable energy. I try to be collaborative. People don't tell me what to do. I hope that we're being collaborative. And your dogs. Yeah, I always let the cats tell me what to do. Why not? They don't tell you in words. I mean, yeah. Words are just like another manifestation of the feeling. People put so much vestige in words because it can be precise. But reality is a different beast altogether. This is like the third stream in a row where I'm just writing this technical document. This like massive readme. And I feel like each time I approach the document, I do make a significant fundamental change. And I feel that my changes are nuanced. But it feels like this is taking forever. As well. I wish I had a kitty here right now. Hanging out on the keyboard, just screwing around. That'd be fun. Come on, babies. You're actually replacing some words or commands with either pointing or looking at what you want them to do. And the little one gets it. What a sweetie. We got a smart little baby in the house. We got a smart little baby in the house. Yeah, it seems more intuitive for them because they're all about eye contact and a single point of focus. And they so badly just want to do what's going to make you happy. They so badly want to just please you. Valorant time. Enjoy the Valorant. Break a leg. Bust some nuts for me. Is that what people do in Valorant? Bust a nut? No. I don't know what the kids say. Yeah, you may want to mute the stream because it's going to cause toxic sleepiness if you just leave my stream running. Mute that puppy. Oh my god, these peanuts. Let's see, I just wanted to clarify the language a little bit. The panels organize compositions for different scenes or stream states. For different scenes. I'm not going to say stream states at all. That's not correct. For example, starting soon. User poll. Chat poll. Gameplay. Break. Swear jar. It's like a game, or it's like not just any gameplay, but it's like the wheel game, for example. Like a dunk tank, for example. Truth or dare. Stream highlights, I think, is a good one. Starting soon. Stream highlights. Chat poll. Wheel game. Break. Dunk tank. Truth or dare. Lots of possibilities. You can create multiple panels, each with its own active set of compositions. Nice. Yeah, this is perfect. So you could do like a highlights reel as part of the composition in the control panel. Do a highlights reel composition, but then also do a composition that is, I don't know, like chat, detecting a word from chat, the mystery of the day. So you're running this composition all day long, no matter what. And I just want to be able to put it all into one control panel, right? So I can have all the compositions I want on my stream. And that's my whole stream. And I'm not going to switch between these panels, but I could if I had something radically different. The idea is that it will be standard. Yeah, the idea is that it will be a standard. how they work together. Let's give this space too. Let's give them name. How elements, compositions, and control panels work together. Elements perform individual actions. Compositions arrange elements into visual or audio experiences. Compositions arrange elements into visual, audio, chat, OBS actions, chat actions, OBS actions, and other experiences. Control panels organize and manage groups of compositions for live operation. In short, elements make the magic, compositions shape it. Okay, we don't need that. And then use cases. Okay, wow, this is a huge improvement. Design principles and core concepts. So we expanded design principles to include core concepts, and then we fleshed out elements, compositions, and control panels. Let's push this to the repository. Commit and push. I mean, once again, we are just improving our technical document. And the reason to just improve technical document is so that we can maintain a picture for others to understand what the software is, and for ourselves, and for GitHub Copilot. More than anything, it's for us to understand and for AI to build the software from. If the specification is clean and clear, should get clean software coming out on the other end, or at least 80% clean. Nice, here we are with our updated Stream Companion. This project also creates a web admin portal where the overlay can be managed and controlled live. A variety of visual effect sequences can be crafted using the building blocks in the system. These are, nope, just cut these are. Check. Design principles and core concepts. Stream Companion is built from 3 connected layers: elements, compositions, and control panels. Together, they form a flexible system for creating, organizing, and controlling your stream. Although these layers are defined in readable files, they can be managed fully through the admin interface. They can be fully managed through the admin interface. Elements are the smallest building blocks. Each element performs one specific task, such as each element has its own configuration. Yeah, animating text, showing an image, playing a sound, responding to a chat event, switching to a scene in OBS. Yeah, generic software hook. A generic software hook to call a script. Invoke a call to an AI bot. Just who knows? All kinds of things. Each element has its own configuration: media file, animation settings, triggers. It's more than that. It's not just the media file. Sometimes it's system configuration. Animation settings, triggers. System config. System parameters. I don't know, man. System filters, requirements. Yeah, because elements are the things that react to real world events. And they can be enabled or disabled at any time. Making the system simpler to customize while streaming live. Compositions combine multiple elements into coordinated effect. They define how elements appear, animate, and interact on the screen. A composition controls the timing, the layout, the animation sequences, the interaction types, hooks, and triggers. Yeah, everything. Just let it control everything. Each composition can be saved, duplicated, or customized for different overlays. Compositions are what OBS actually displays through the browser. Or customized. Compositions can be added to one or more overlays. So that a persistent, yeah, I'm just going to say a persistent composition across overlays is possible. A persistent composition, it's configured is the point. You build this composition, you set all the parameters, and because it's persistent, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in order to keep it showing. With one set of parameters, with one configuration. Can appear across multiple overlays. Compositions are what OBS actually displays through the browser source. Think of a composition as a complete performance made from the many elements working together. I don't know about complete performance. Let's get that hallucination out of there. They group related compositions together and let you manage them live. Each control panel appears as a tab in the admin interface. Panels organize compositions for different scenes. Example, starting soon, stream highlights, chat poll, wheel game, break, dunk tank, truth or dare. Each composition instance within a panel has its own. Each composition added to a panel has its own management widget for quick control. You can create multiple panels, each with its own active set of compositions. Its own collection of compositions. Just like elements, individual compositions can be enabled and disabled and Yeah, that's all. And disabled from the control panel for that collection. Yeah, from the control panel. In which they are found. Yep. Think of control panels as your command stations, where you trigger, adjust, and monitor your overlay in real time. Yeah, exactly. Elements perform individual actions. Compositions arrange elements into visual, audio, chat, interactions, OBS actions, and other experiences. Control panels organize and manage groups of compositions for live operation. That's right. Listening for a word on the microphone and triggering a chat and triggering another. They're not called collections. What are they called? Composition. And triggering another composition. Triggering a hook in another composition. Or maybe I should just run another composition altogether, not just triggering a hook in an existing composition. Yeah, I mean, I want to be specific. Triggering a hook in a composition is certainly it's quick, precise language of some sort. I just want to use general language. I don't want to say composition. Yeah, and triggering a poll, for example. Triggering a poll to start, and it would be like an internal poll. There we go. We just made some refinements here. Pretty subtle what changes we've made. And we corrected some minor grammatical issues. Yeah, that's correct. Cool. And did chat get back to us on the image? Yes, it did. Elements, compositions, follow alerts. What? And then control panels have the compositions in them. So there's follow alert. I don't really get it. I don't really get this image that well. It should be a hierarchical image, right? Let's redraw. It should be hierarchical, right? And I know it's going to mess this up, but refine better the image to also show that control panels are grouped by tabs. The control panels are tabs. Oh, we're going to run out of tokens here for sure. We can't be just like generating image. Yeah, hold on a sec. Just cut this off. No, let's not. Is this going to go anyway? Yeah, it's just going to finish it for us. I guess it's already so deep in the task. Okay, are we at the precipice of asking for code generation here? That'd be kind of nice. That'd be kind of nice. Let's just ask. What are the simplest steps we should take to get started on implementation? We're going to get an image out of this thing. Come hell or high water. Let's go. It's going for it. I couldn't stop it. Oh, it's like set up the development environment. Yeah, I guess so. Create a virtual environment. Yeah, is there an extension we should be using here for poetry? Let's see here. $20,000 downloads, but only 1 star. Python Poetry Sport, 118,000 downloads. There we go, 3.5 stars. Can we sort these by most downloaded? Uh-oh. Poetry. Okay, yep, let's go for it. Trust publisher and install. So we should be using a requirements.txt file to define set up the project structure, elements, compositions, control panels, Twitch, media, data. And the app has all kinds of elements. Yeah, implement the fast API application, create the main application. Run it locally, start the server. Use Uvicorn to run the application with hot reload. And begin by implementing the core components. Set up chat integration, test and iterate, write tests for testing the async code, iterate on features, document and progress, plan for deployment. So start by developing, and then we'll plan for deployment. We'll be deploying with Docker much later anyway. So I think we're in a good place here. Maybe we're just going to pull the agent out and get some help with our requirements file to start. Does this program understand what's going on in VS Code? Can I say, like, let's check if I'm using a virtual environment now. Not sure what it's going to do with this. Are we in a virtual environment? Whoa, it's going to run some PowerShell here. Yeah, allow. It appears that the Python executable being used is located at python.exe, which is local. I see. It typically indicates you're not currently using a virtual environment, as it points to the system-wide installation of Python. Whoops. To confirm you're in a virtual environment, you can check the prompt. If it shows the name of a virtual environment, then you're in one. If not, then you can activate it by running activate. Yeah, this is magic PowerShell. We can delete that. Okay, before we start with the virtual environment, let's just talk about Python here. Do we have Python set up correctly? Yeah. And create VN if needed. Do I have to do all these commands on the PowerShell command line? That's so unfortunate. Yep, PowerShell command, python -- version. Let's go. Swing open a little PowerShell. Python was not found. Python was not found. Is Python not installed at all? Python? Is Python not installed? Is Python not installed? How do I know if Python is installed in Windows? How do I know if Python is installed in Windows? I just do not know how to use Microsoft Windows. Let's get real. I just do not know how to use Microsoft Windows. Python was not found. Is Python found? Nope. Check installed apps. Installed apps. Python. Nope. Python is not installed. Okay. Method 4. Check the path environment variable. Okay, let's just say it's not installed. Install Python for Windows. Just feel like we downloaded this already. Like, maybe not. Pre-release, bug fix, 3.13, 3.14. Security releases. Yeah, does it matter what version of Python? Download the latest version for Windows. Yeah, I guess so. 3.14, deal. I don't know why I would choose 3.14, latest PEP standard. MSIX files? Interesting. Install Python. Launch when ready. Sure, install Python. Let's go. All right, we're closing out Visual Studio Code, and we'll reopen once we finish installing Python. Okay, I didn't realize we were gonna not have Python installed. Holy crap! I better start with square one here on Microsoft Windows. Python and other apps can exceed this limit. It requires changing a system-wide setting. Yeah, let's update the setting. Yep. The directory for versioned Python commands is not configured. This will prevent commands like versioned Python working, but will not affect the Python or Py commands. We can add the directory to path now, but you will need to restart your terminal to see the change. Yeah, add them. Doesn't want to install CPython. If not, I can use pyinstall default later to install, or one will be installed automatically when needed. Yeah, let's install CPython as well. Okay. View the help online? No, I think we're okay. Well, that was it. Is that it? Python's installed? Straight up Python's installed. Let's go. Okay. So we got Python. We got Python. Let's reopen Visual Studio Code. We got Python. Connection to server is erroring. Client PowerShell editor services. I think that we should restart the computer. You know? It's a little restarteroo. That's what I think. Give it a minute. And while that's restarting, I just want to remind us that I'm here on Fridays for Factories, 9 a.m. Pacific, Wednesdays for BUILDNESDAY, where I'm conducting our software development and building other things, and Tuesdays, where I conduct literature review and learn about the broader topics that interest us randomly, and especially interest me. Just a quick restart here. That's all. Windows loves a restart. Loves a restart. Oh. Okay. Okay, Windows got its little restart there. Let's see if it still complains about PowerShell. Struggling out. Oof, a lot of stuff's happening. We should just kill off these other instances. Connection to PowerShell editor services. The extension terminal is closed. See below prompt to restart. Would you like to restart it? Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Started. Nice. Okay. Okay, I think we can exit these. Exit Steam. Good. Okay. Great work, everybody. Okay. Let's try checking Python again. Let's see if the agent can do this for us. I just lacked Python and it absolutely figured it out right away. I didn't have to go to the internet and figure it out. I had everything available to me directly in this agent. Preparing to-do list, building a plan. Yep, run Python -- version. Let's go. .14.0, absolutely fantastic. Python is installed. Yeah, let's create the virtual environment and activate it. Python -m venv and activate it. If you already have a preferred venv name location, let me know and I'll create that instead. Yes, let's set up the virtual environment. So you do it right from within your editor here, and it's like you don't have to have a second terminal in VS Code. You've got your terminal right here. So we'll just issue Python commands directly inside of the project root, inside of the Stream Companion folder. Here it goes. It's going to update the to-do list and create a venv in the Python project if missing, and verify the Python version. Yep. Activate. Python -- version. Deactivate. Okay, that's taking a hot second. Ooh. Uh-oh. Security error. PS security exception. Unauthorized access. Oh, I see. It wasn't allowed to create a virtual environment. Oh, because deactivate wasn't recognized as the name of a commandlet. Activate cannot be loaded because running scripts is disabled on the system. What does the AI know about this? Temporarily allow script execution for the session and activate the venv now. Gosh, why would I not? Scope force. Manually activate the venv via the activate.bat command, which works in regular PowerShell without changing execution policy. Recommended. Use the first option to allow activation only for this power. I mean, why would I not have it, though? PowerShell blocked activation due to execution policy. Yeah, run it. Yep. Do we really have execution policies? Like, what's execution privileges? Is that what Windows is talking about? I'll temporarily bypass PowerShell script restrictions for this session. I'll activate venv, and I'll verify Python and pip inside of it. Yes, please. Bypass. Done. Done. Virtual environment engaged. And then also disengaged. And we got the pip version inside. Excellent. Results. What I ran. Good. Notes and the next steps. The set execution policy change applies only to this PowerShell session and is safe to use. It won't change system-wide policy. To activate the virtual environment in future sessions, run PowerShell. Recommended temporary bypass. I have to use this? insert into terminal, copy, insert into a new file, or use the batch activator. No policy change required. Yeah, let's use the batch activator. Do I need to... No, let's try out the batch activator. I just want to see it work. And then we can build a requirements file. Okay, it's going to run activate. It's going to use the bat file, and then it's going to ask for the version of Python and the version of pip. Yeah, it did work. Command/C. So why /C? I ran copyable. And create a project.toml file. Yeah, let's go. Look at us using poetry for the first time. Maybe we just get a crash course on poetry super quick. YouTube. Python poetry. And let's just get the most upvoted. Sort by view count. And also let's, wow, the poetry of programming. No, sort it by view count, but filter it by upload date. This year? I don't know if we need it this year. Use UV. Python poetry. Getting started with Python poetry. Okay.
Welcome to this Real Python course, Dependency Management with Python Poetry. My name's Emmanuel, and I'm excited to guide you through this journey of understanding and even mastering dependency management with poetry. If you have faced challenges with managing dependencies in your Python projects, like version conflicts,
as soon as you start writing more complicated Python scripts, it becomes really important to properly manage your dependencies. You're going to use a bunch of other libraries and packages, and you want to make sure that you have the versions right. Commonly used tool to handle dependencies is Poetry, which is what I use for most of my Python projects. And next to handling dependencies, this can also do other things, such as creating virtual environments for your code to run in, but also publish your code, your packages to PyPy. So today I'll walk you through the basics of Poetry and give you some tips and tricks for how to set up and manage your project effectively. Software from scratch. You can get it at arion.code/design guide. It contains the 7 steps that I take whenever I design a new piece of software, and hopefully it's also in the description of this video. Dependencies in Python have been handled in different ways in the past. One very basic way to handle dependencies is just pip install whatever you need in your global Python installation. That's not a really great way to go, because that means that you may have version conflicts. It will also be hard to keep track of when you want your script to run somewhere else.
True.
What dependency you actually need to install. So it makes sense to at least have some representation of what the dependencies are supposed to be as part of your Python project. Common way to do that has been requirements.txt, but it's easy to misconfigure and kind of hard to update. And that's why since PEP 518, the pyproject.toml file has been introduced. Here you see an example of what such a file might look like. So it has various sections. So there are general package settings like the name and the version, description. You can refer to a README file. There are dependencies, in this case, we have a Python 3.12 dependencies, and you also have build system settings. By putting all of this information into a single file, you don't need a separate requirement.txt and a setup.py, a manifest and other things. It's all in one TOML file. Now you can in principle directly edit this file. It's a text file, so you can just add your dependencies here, but it's kind of cumbersome, and it's, in my opinion, better to use a tool like Poetry to handle that automatically for you. For example, if I want to use Poetry to add a dependency on...
So wait a minute, Poetry versus UV? Maybe we should just look at this.
I can simply write Poetry add PyTest. And now you see it has installed a bunch of different things. And if we open the TOML file, Poetry now has added PyTest for us. And on top of that, it has also installed other packages that PyTest depends on. And if you type Poetry show, then you can see the packages that it has installed, including the version. So this you can run at any time to see what is the status of your dependencies. The first time you add a package, Poetry also creates a poetry.log file. And this is what that looks like. Now, this is a file that you typically don't have to edit yourself. It's really an internal file for Poetry to keep track of the dependencies. Next to just adding a dependency, Poetry has other options as well. You can also remove dependencies or update them to the latest version using semantic versioning. Let's explore this a little bit more. Poetry add is used to add dependencies like I've just shown before. So, for example, let's say I want to add the requests package, which is quite commonly used for HTTP requests. I can use the add sign to specify a specific version, for example, 2.12.1. So when I do this, now it has added request version 2.12. And you can also see it's here in the list. And when I open the PyProject file, you also see that the request package has been added here. And as you can see, it has installed this specific version. So if I want to remove the dependency, I simply write Poetry remove request in this case. And now it has removed that particular dependency. Now, typically, I don't install specific versions of packages. I just want to give some sort of limitation to how we want the upgrade process to take place. So what I typically do is install the package like so.
Poetry add.
And what this character does is that it installs the most recent version following this version up until the major version. So it won't install request version 3, for example. But as you can see, it goes up to 2.31.0. So it's a minor version and not a major version update. And when you look at the PyProject file, you also see that it has added this specification to the version number. Now, if I type Poetry show, and I can even add the specific package that I want to show, then you see it shows the name of the package, the description, as well as the version that's actually installed. Or just write Poetry show to show everything, and there you also see there's the request package at 2.31.0. Let's remove that dependency again. So another alternative is that we add requests using the tilde. And the tilde is a bit more restrictive in that it only installs the package up to the latest minor version. So you see here it has installed 2.12.5 instead of 2.12.1, but it doesn't switch to 2.13. So basically what you do in both of these cases is that you sort of define an upper and a lower bound. And when you're just starting out with a new project, you probably just want to add the latest version of a package, but it's helpful to know that this gives you some control over what dependency version you're going to use. What I'd recommend you use when you install dependencies is the carrot. That to me is a good sweet spot between having maintenance overhead and having no control whatsoever over the versions. And by the way, this is also what Poetry does by default. So for example, if I add fast API, then you also see, if I look at the PyProject TOML file, that it actually uses the carrot character by default. When you have a PyProject file and you simply want to install all the dependencies in it, you write Poetry install. And then it's going to simply install all of the dependencies. So you see there is in this current project no specific folder for this particular package. So you can also say that there is no root folder, and then you don't get that error, but it does install dependencies in both cases. Now, when you have the dependencies installed, Poetry can also create a virtual environment for you within which you can run your code. And you simply write Poetry shell to go into that virtual environment. And then
dude, Poetry is so powerful. This is incredible. It's like, and dependency management, yeah, it used to be spread across multiple instances and multiple files, but Poetry makes that all super straightforward, it looks like. Am I going to find out that Poetry is the old way of doing things and we aren't even going to bother getting into Poetry? Are we going to jump ship before we even get on board.
And within that environment, you can simply run your Python script. So it's really easy to use. In the VS Code terminal, you can actually see which virtual environment you are in. And in this case, in my recording folder, it has created a .vm folder that contains all the information related to the virtual environment. Now, Poetry also offers some help with versioning, building, and publishing your package. So currently, the version of this package is 0.2.0. But if we want to bump the version number, we can simply write Poetry version minor. And this uses semantic versioning to go to the next version. So this goes from 0.2.0 to 0.3.0. And this is also reflected in the PyProject file. Normally the PyProject file is something that you commit in your Git repository so that the latest version number is also available there. Now there are other things you can do related to semantic versioning like 1.0.0-alpha 1 or release candidate. There's lots of things to cover. I might do a separate video about semantic versioning. If you'd like me to do that, let me know in the comments. Now, when you're ready to unleash your project into the world, Poetry can also package your project into distributable formats such as a wheel or a source distribution.
Dude, and this is all built into a third-party Python package called Poetry. What is it that could possibly replace such a monolith in the modern ecosystem?
tar gzip file. And then when you're done building, you write Poetry, publish, and then supply your PyPy credentials, and then you can publish it to PyPy. And of course, all of these things, you can also do that in, let's say, a GitHub workflow, so that whenever you commit to a particular branch, that's automatically going to run these tasks, or whenever you publish a tag on GitHub. Lots of possibilities there to automate things and simplify your life. So I hope this gave you a quick idea of what you can do with Poetry. Highly recommend you start using it. Now, if you want some inspiration, some ideas for nice Python projects you could work on to improve your skills, watch this video next. Thanks for watching and see you soon.
Some fun free time projects. Look at that. Great ideas for fun free time projects. Artistic lines and bokeh particles. Yeah, interesting. What's this? All right, so let's ask the question then. Versus UV. UV. Are people even talking about this? InfoWorld 6 months ago.
Python's default tool for setting up and managing requirements for projects is pip. But there's a lot of modern Python project management pip doesn't handle, at least not yet. And so third-party tools have stepped in to fill the gap. Two of the biggest of those tools are UV and Poetry. UV is the newer contender. It's part of the wave of new Python tooling written in Rust. Poetry has been around for a while, and it's been adopted as a development tool for a few high-profile projects. Let's see how the two of them shape up side by side. To show a little of what it's like to manage a project with both of these tools, I'm going to take a project I've shown a few times before, my Conway's Game of Life project. Let's start with UV, the new kid on the block. When I initialize a new project with UV, it'll create a pyproject.toml file and let me add dependencies with UV add. I've already set up this project's base, but let's say I want to use Cython and Piglet as dependencies. So I type UV add Cython and Piglet.
UV add Cython.
And this will add those dependencies to pyproject.toml and install them in a virtual environment, and also figure out what the optimal versions are for each dependency. This is what UV and Poetry are most important for. They help you figure out the dependencies you have for your project, whether or not they're compatible with each other, and if not, what to do about it. UV works as a pretty transparent overlay to the existing way of doing things with a Python project. If you want to work with pip, for instance, you just use UV as a prefix, UV pip list. And this is a list of all the packages that are installed in the virtual environment tracked for this project. UV also respects other behaviors. For instance, when we set up this project, it was installed into the local venv as an editable install, which means its build process was triggered. And that built the compiled Cython components for it, and also set up the project's command line entry points, all of which are now available in the venv. So UV is best thought of as an accelerant and a refinement to the existing Python ways of doing things. It's not an outward dependency. Other people don't have to use UV to develop my project or to run it. Now let's take a look at how Poetry does things. The first and biggest difference with Poetry is that it takes a much more proactive role in managing your project. As with UV, you can use Poetry commands to set up a project and add dependencies to it. The pyproject.toml file I have here I created by running poetry init and supplying my dependencies. So if I use poetry add to include a new dependency, in this case markdown, that will get its dependencies resolved and added to the pyproject file. But you'll notice we have no venv directory in this project. And that's because Poetry manages venvs separately on its own, apart from any individual project you'd create. If we look at the virtual environments that we can use here, you'll notice the Poetry created venv is listed, but that it's often a user profile directory. It's not in the project directory itself. A number of other behaviors also change. For instance, if I make an editable install of my project through Poetry, as I've done here, the conventional build process for extension modules or entry points doesn't run. If I want to do all that, I have to add custom entries to the build system section of pyproject. And I also have to create a build script specifically for Poetry, which in this case just invokes the existing setup.py as it would usually be run. In fact, the whole way Poetry handles build processes is still considered an unstable feature. So Poetry tends to take over a lot of the individual aspects of how a project is not only managed, but built. And those changes, once they're put in place, are going to mean an ongoing dependency on the way Poetry does things. To that end, if you're working in a team and you want to enforce consistency on the way a project is developed from the inside, including the exact tooling for setup and package management, Poetry is the better choice. But if you just want a tool that lets you work as you do now with Python, but faster and with a nicer set of options for spinning up and managing projects, choose UV. And that's it for this episode. If you liked it, leave a comment below, and don't forget to follow Dev with Serdar and InfoWorld on Facebook, YouTube, and Infoworld.com.
Interesting. And also, good to know, UV respects all of the existing tooling, so you can still use UV as a package without having to do a migration anywhere. Like, we will use Poetry, so to speak. But using Poetry interactively as the standard, maybe that's not what we're doing. Maybe we're using UV.
I've been using UV for a few weeks now. It's awesome.
This was 10 months ago now. So this was like, what is it, November? Yeah, we're talking about like February.
It combines lots of things
2025
into a single tool, and it's really fast. Today, I'm going to show you how to get the most out of it and why I think you should use it. You also need to know about a few things that it doesn't do yet. And finally, did you know it wasn't always called UV? It's kind of interesting. Now, what is UV? With UV, you manage dependencies, virtual environments, Python versions, and more. It replaces lots of tools, including pip, piptools, pipex, Poetry, pyenv, virtualenv, and more. And it's also really...
Like, honestly, can I just say thank goodness as well? Because it's not that I've lagged behind and I haven't caught up on all those tools. That is also correct. I know a little bit about many of those components and tools and how they work together. And I am constantly confronted by how I don't have enough information to use them. How the configuration wasn't correct from the start. How I'm not leveraging the strength of the tool at all. Fundamental issue.
Fast, much faster than all of those other tools I just mentioned, and that's because it's developed in Rust. It's good to know that UV is owned by Astral, a VC-backed company that also develops Gruff, a formatter that's also really nice. Now, being a VC-backed company doesn't automatically mean you're evil. In fact, because it's a VC-backed company, they will probably have the means to put serious resources into developing the tool, which is nice. The counter side is that they might decide to pull a Redis on us. Again, I'm not saying this will happen, just something to be aware of.
Whoa,
All right,
what
so how
happened
do you
to
install
Redis?
UV? There are multiple ways to do it. If you're on Mac, the easiest...
Yeah, well, hold on. What happened to Redis? I'm
been
using
UV
Redis.
for a few weeks.
Like, I'm using Redis on a Nextcloud server, so I don't want Redis to disappear. What happened to Redis? It's still widely used and actively developed. They hit 10 billion Docker pulls wild. A serious security vulnerability was disclosed that could allow remote code execution via Lua. What changed? license changes. It originally used a permissive BSD3 clause, but in March they announced a move to a dual license model and their own Redis source available license. SSPL isn't truly open source, right? Server-side public license. A sizable fork emerged. Valkey under the Linux Foundation was created from the last BSD licensed Redis version. Yep, there you go. There you go. Linux Foundation has to step up every time and protect good software. You can't just stand on the shoulders of giants and then lock that shit up. That is wild, the standard. Redis announced version 8 under GNU AGPL version 3. Now they say the ecosystem has matured, forked sufficiently, and they can return to a more open license. What? They just shook a bunch of people off of the license. If you use Redis in production, especially cloud-hosted or in multi-tenant environments, you want to check which version and which license you're using. Ugh. I'll just stay with my old version. Thanks. Thanks. That's wild. That's wild, yeah.
Now, it's awesome. It combines lots of things into a single tool, and it's really fast. Today, I'm going to show you how to get the most out of it and why I think you should use it. You also need to know about a few things that it doesn't do yet. And finally, did you know it wasn't always called UV? It's kind of interesting. Now, what is UV? With UV, you manage dependencies, virtual environments, Python versions, and more. It replaces lots of tools, including pip, piptools, pipex, poetry, pyenv, virtualenv, and more. And it's also really fast, much faster than all of those other tools I just mentioned. And that's because it's developed in Rust. It's good to know that UV is owned by Astral, a VC-backed company that also develops Gruff, a formatter that's also really nice. Now, being a VC-backed company doesn't automatically mean you're evil. In fact, because it's a VC-backed company, they will probably have the means to put serious resources into developing the tool, which is nice. The counter side is that they might decide to pull a Redis on us. Again, I'm not saying this will happen, just something to be aware of. All right, so how do you install UV? There are multiple ways to do it. If you're on Mac, the easiest option is to simply use brew. So you just type brew install UV, and this is going to install the tool. As you can see, I also needed to update a couple of things here, so there's a bunch of other things here as well. But if you're not on Mac or you don't have brew installed on your Mac, you can also use a curl request, and that gives you a standalone installer. You can also install it with pip. Simply write in pip install UV, and that's going to install the tool for you. Or you can even install it with cargo. And then supply the Git repository. I won't type all the details here, but you get the idea of how this works. Now, once you have installed UV, you have the UV command line tool available to you. So if I type this, then I'm going to get a bunch of options here. So one thing that is actually nice to evaluate is the shell completion. So this generates the code for that and that you can evaluate. So once you've done this, then you can simply write UV, and then, for example, I type C, and then you're going to get the options. In this case, that's cache and clean. So this is a nice extra thing to do. And what you can also do is add this command to your Z shell or bash.rc file. And then you get this automatically whenever you launch a new shell. And the same goes for UVX, which is the tool version of UV, similar to what pipx is to pip. In order to set up a new project, you can use the UV init command. And there's two flags that you can use, --app. So this is going to create a Python app with a PyProject TOML file. This is the most common thing that you're going to need. But there's also --lib, which will create a library. That's basically nothing more than a source caller with a bunch of Python code. So the default is app. So normally you never have to type this. And then you simply write your project name. And so now what this has done is it has initialized a project for me. So let's see what it actually generated. So this file we're just going to ignore for the time being, that was already there. But you see there's now a new folder called my project. And we have a .git folder, so it already sets up a basic Git setup for you locally. So you can then later on attach this to a remote. There's a git ignore file, which contains a bunch of useful things like Python generated files that, of course, we don't want to commit to our Git repository. Same for virtual environment. There's a .python version file here. So here I picked 3.12. Then there is a Python file, which is basically a placeholder that...
Whoa, hold the phone here. .python version file? We don't do that ever. Yeah, okay. So UV is managing just all of these completely standard expectations. And I feel utterly validated. All the time that I've ever started development, I look for the standard methods. And then there's these ways, these toolings, these approaches. There's multiple steps in each tool that you take as a developer to get your development environment to that place where you're ready. And it looks like UV is just supercharging this development experience. I don't want to waste time switching environments.
Just prints hello world. We have a README file that's empty. And there is a PyProject TOML file that contains all the information for this particular project. And now what's really nice is if I go into the My Project folder, so there I have my files again, and I do uv run hello.py. This is actually going to create the virtual environment, install all the dependencies, and then it's going to run the file and we get the output right here. So that's really straightforward. Now that we have this project set up, it's actually also really easy to add dependencies. So for example, let's
just flip that again, like it was just UV setup, right?
There's, for the time being, me project name. And so now
UV
what this
init,
has done is it has
name of
initialized
project.
going to ignore, and we for which
All
contains
of it.
to our file
UV init, name of project.
So there I have my files again, and I do uv run
UV run
hello.py. This is actually going to create the virtual environment, install all the dependencies, and then it's going to run the file and we get the output right here.
Wow.
So that's really straightforward. Now that we
Will UV pick up on the existing virtual environments that I've set up?
have this project set up, it's actually also really easy to add dependencies.
Hold on, let's just check with ChatGPT. Does UV, yeah, let's start a new chat. Using the UV package. Instead of poetry directly. Does UV pick up, does it know about and use the poetry VNV that I already created? No, it does not automatically use the Poetry Managed Virtual Environment. However, you can make it use the same environment, but you'll need to activate it manually or tell UV to install it. So Poetry manages its virtual environments according to configuration, and UV does not use that environment management. It uses whatever Python environment is currently active, or it creates its own when you run commands like UV run. Okay, well, screw that then. UV vn -- path. So if I use this code, if I use a vn path, is it permanent? Let's tell UV to use the existing path. Do I have to repeat that operation? I want it to know once and to use it. It changes the configuration, right? Creates a new one if it doesn't exist. If it does exist, it just starts using it. It does not persist that path configuration anywhere automatically. So, do I have to repeat it? Yeah, I have to repeat. To avoid repetition, I can use .python-version, create a .python, and then UV automatically detects and uses the VNV when running commands in the project directory. Yeah, we'll just let UV automatically manage the virtual environment. Why would we not? Yeah, what does UV stand for, I wonder?
So for example, let's say I want to add pandas. I can simply write UV add pandas.
Add pandas,
and
that's
this
so
is
good.
going to add the pandas package to my project. And it will
Unreal.
also automatically update the PyProject file to contain that actual dependency.
That's so
and
tight.
if you want to install multiple dependencies, it's also really easy. So let's say I want to add Fast API as well as SQL Alchemy. So then I simply write both of those things here. And then if I go back to my PyProject file, well, they're both there. So this is all really neat. And removing dependencies is just as simple. So let's say I don't want to use SQL Alchemy anymore. So I simply type remove SQL Alchemy. And then it's going to uninstall that package and remove it from the PyProject file. All really straightforward, very similar to how it works with Poetry. But as you can also see, adding and removing these dependencies is really fast. And
I don't normally consider the speed of the dependency interaction as in any way a favor against or for these tools. It takes a little time to do package management. So I guess for folks who are adding and removing a lot of packages, that time is the time that kills your workflow. But if you're a developer like me and you're working in the nitty-gritty in the code, you don't use those overhead functions that often compared to how long you spend writing code.
This is not an extremely fast computer that I'm showing this on. This is an M1 iMac. So, I mean, it's not a slow computer, but still doing this is much faster than installing dependency via Poetry. But installing dependencies this way is way faster than doing it with pip, for example. Let's say I want to install SQL Alchemy using pip. Like so. Then you see this actually takes quite a lot of time. Now,
Yeah,
I told you UV was called something else before. So let's take a look. This is one of the very first commits of the project. So it started development in 2023, October 2023. And as you can see, it was initially called Puffin.
Puffin Rock.
So at this time, this was just a package manager, nothing else. Didn't do any of the other things that it's currently doing. But honestly, I think it's a good call that they changed the name from Puffin to UV. Otherwise, we would all been typing Puffin add dependency or Puffin in my project all the time. And I don't really like that. Now, like I mentioned, UV handles dependencies.
He doesn't really like that, Puffin. I like UV because it's short, but it's not like I don't like Puffin.
For you, it also has a log file. That's what you can see here. So that's very similar to what Poetry does, for example. And like I said before, these are stored in the PyProject TOML file. And like I mentioned, you can add dependencies with Puffin add.
Puffin Rock.
I mean, UV add, obviously. You can remove them with UV remove. And if for some reason your virtual environment is not synced with the current state of the dependencies, you can also do UV sync.
What's this Puffin Rock thing that he keeps showing? I have to know now. Puffin Rock. Children's television series from 2015 that has 2 seasons. 4.9 stars. And what is Reddit Hot Topic? The artwork animation, is it good? 8.6 stars. Wow, on IMDb. This is not relaxing.
Silky. You made a tiny shell, Baba. Move the Hatmaster to one side, Marcy, so they can see it.
What? I mean, we're definitely not allowed to watch that, right? Netflix. Definitely not. Banned. Stream banned. We'll omit that audio. Scratch that audio. That was unintentional. This was for educational purposes only. Fair use. Fair use. I guess it's not soothing. I totally disagree with that evaluation. Puffin Rock is not soothing.
Sync your dependencies with what is installed in your virtual environment. And that virtual environment folder is right here inside your project. You can also explicitly generate the log file by calling UV log. And then there's a few other folders, current state of the dependencies. You can also do UV sync.
Just
and this
sync, just UV sync, and it fixes it all.
what is installed in your virtual environment. And that virtual environment folder is right here inside your project.
Yeah,
you can also
excellent.
explicitly generate the log file by calling uv log. And then there's a few other things you can do with this as well. Like you can do log upgrade package, for example, and then the package name, let's say pandas, and then it's going to try to upgrade that package to the latest version. And finally, another nice thing to have is UV tree. And this is going to give you a tree of the dependencies in your particular project. So what this shows me, for example, is that I have installed Fast API, but that relies on Pydantic, which in turn relies on Pydantic core, etc., etc. There is also Starlet, which is the lower level server that Fast API is built on. And this is a very helpful tree to see, because then you know exactly what your dependencies are and how they relate to the other tools that you're using in your project. Managing dependencies is just one aspect you need to consider when you write your software. I have a free guide that teaches you the 7 steps I take whenever I design a new piece of software. Grab your copy at Ion. Here, as you can see, I have a folder, my project, inside another folder, the main folder for my recording setup. Now, UV supports something called workspaces, and these are used for mono repos that contain multiple Python applications or projects. And the way that this works is if you type UV init inside the folder, that's my project, that already contains a PyProject file, then it's going to assume that this project is going to be part of my project. And you can also see it mentions this, that this is now a member of a workspace. And when you look at the folder that it generated, so now there is still a PyProject file here, right? That's for another project. That's exactly what I want. And of course, another hello.py. But then if I go into my folder, another project, and I add a dependency, let's say I want to work with SQL model in this particular project, then you can see that inside this folder, it hasn't created a log file. The log file is still right here. And this contains the reference to the SQL model package that's part of another project. So we have a shared set of dependencies. And also, if I run my other project, it says hello from another project, it uses the same virtual environment. So the same set of dependencies, virtual environment, is shared between the different projects in the workspace. Now, if you don't want this, if you simply want a completely separate project with its own virtual environment, then you simply do UV init yet another project, no workspace. And now it created yet another project. I can go to that folder and let me add the dependency. Let's say SQL model again. And now you see that it created in yet another project a new virtual environment. That's because it's not part of a workspace. Now note that workspaces are mainly
interesting. So he added something that was no
now
workspace.
It created yet another project. I can go to that folder and let me add the dependency. Let's say SQL model.
So it builds
again.
it outside the workspace.
And now you see that it created in yet another project a new virtual environment. That's because it's not part of a workspace. Now note that workspaces are mainly useful if you have several projects that rely on the same dependencies. An example at Iron Code is that we have a repository with a bunch of cloud functions for various backend automations, generating invoices whenever somebody buys a course, or updating the link to the latest video on YouTube, and so on. And this we all put in a single repository with a separate folder for each function. And then this kind of approach is really helpful. In some cases, there are Python packages that have applications that can be run as tools. This is something that UV has support for as well. For example, if you want to run rough auto formatter, you can simply type UV tool run rough. This is also going to install the package and then run that tool. So in this case, we may want to run a check. So you can do UV tool run rough check. And then it does the check on our code. A shorter version of this is by using UVX. Like so. And then it does exactly the same thing. Now, if you have a tool like rough, then UV will automatically install this into a temporary environment for you so that it can run the tool in there. If you want to see where those tools are installed, you simply type UV tool there, and then it's going to show you where that is. When you start using UV tool for the first time, it's helpful to do UV tool update shell. So this is going to create a configuration file for your shell, and then your terminal has to path to the executables that you install. If you want to install specific tools, you can do that also via UV. So you simply type UV tool install and then the tool that you want to add, for example, rough. So this is already there. Similarly, you can also uninstall tools like so. So now rough is gone, and let's install that again because rough is actually kind of helpful to have. There we go. Next to installing and uninstalling, you can also upgrade the tool to the new version. Like so. At the moment, there's nothing to upgrade because we just installed the latest version. Another thing that UV does is that it automatically detects Python versions in your system. And then it follows a particular hierarchy to find those versions. First, it checks the managed installations by UV. Then it's going to check the system paths, so Python references that you have already added to your path. And if no compatible version is found, UV is going to download and install one for you. When searching for versions, UV will prefer newer versions first. When searching for a system Python version, UV will use the first compatible version, not the newest version. If you use UV Python list, you can see all the available Python versions in their path. So as you can see, I have like a bunch of different versions of Python installed here. I should probably clean this up at some point. If you want to install a specific Python version, you simply type puffin python install. I mean UV Python install, obviously. And then you type the version. Let's say I want to install 3.12.0. And now this is going to install that particular version of Python. You can also use constraints. So UV Python install. And then if you type something like this, it's going to install the newest version that adheres to this constraint. So this is, in this case, the last version of Python 3.10. And then once you have these installed, you can set a specific Python version for your project. So in this case, we've seen that the Python version was 3.12. So let's say I know that I have 3.13 here installed. So maybe I want to use that instead. So then I can simply type UV venv -- Python 3.13.0. And now my virtual environment is based on Python 3.13. Now I have some thoughts and things to be mindful of.
It makes it really easy to switch between versions.
About that, if you're enjoying this video so far, give it a like. This helps me a lot with reaching more people here on YouTube. Thank you so much. Now overall, I really like Puffin. I mean UV. It makes managing a Python project really easy. It replaces a lot of different tools and it makes it a lot quicker to get set up with Python, especially if you're new to the ecosystem. It's also flexible enough to allow you to use it in a variety of scenarios, which is great. One thing that I like in particular about UV versus Poetry is that the PyProject file is a standard file, whereas Poetry uses its own version of PyProject. Now, while UV doesn't make any of the other existing tools obsolete, versions that the PyProject file is great. One thing that I like in particular about UV versus Poetry is that the PyProject file is a standard file, where
it's a standard file. Project, tool.pytest.any options. Sure.
Poetry uses its own version of PyProject. Now, while UV doesn't make any of the other existing tools obsolete yet, I do think integrated tools like UV will become the standard for the Python ecosystem. And on top of that, of course, the speed is definitely a nice bonus to have. So try this yourself. Also make sure to check out the documentation because this video didn't cover everything in detail. Now, the challenge with developing a tool like UV is that it doesn't become a sort of bloated kitchen sink tool, right? But still, there are a few things that I think are currently missing from the tool. The first thing is custom scripts. For example, I'd really like to have a shorthand for calling a script like UV test, and then that's going to run all my tests. The Node.js ecosystem has this functionality. You can add scripts to package or JSON, and then you can use npm to run those things. Really handy. With UV, this isn't possible, but in my opinion, this would be a really helpful feature. The second thing is related to building and publishing your Python project, which you can do with UV. To do that, you need to add a build system definition to your PyProject TOML file. If you don't do that, then UV is not going to do anything. And this is what that looks like. So at the time of recording this video, Hatchling is the default build backend.
Interesting.
UV doesn't have its own. In my opinion, this would be a really nice thing to have. If UV includes its own build backend, you don't have to install another third-party tool to build your Python project. And actually, it looks like this is something that's being worked on. There's this open issue on GitHub. So if you want to keep up to date on that, follow this issue and see what is happening. And hopefully we'll get an integrated build backend developed in Rust, which will also mean that it's going to be very fast. In order to publish your Python package, you can use UV publish. And then you can pass the credentials like password and the username, for example. Now what we use in a few projects is the trusted publisher setup from PyPI. And then we publish packages via a GitHub action. And in that case, this is really simple.
That's
you don't
really
need to pass
slick.
any
Wow.
credentials to UV. So here's what that looks like in Bragir, which is one of the packages that we're working on. This is a package that automatically generates captions using AI. And this is a GitHub action that we use for publishing this particular package. So there's a bunch of prerequisite work, like checking some things in PyPI, etc. And then we have setup and build, and there you see we have a install UV step. And then we just use a few simple UV commands to install the dependencies. We use UV build to build the source and the wheel distribution. And finally, we have the publication step, which is simply calling UV publish. And as you can see, there's no need for credentials here because that's all handled by the trusted publisher process. But now I'd like to hear from you. Do you use Puffin? UV. Do you like it? What do you think is still missing? Let me know in the comments. Now, there's a lot more going on in the GitHub action that I just showed you. If you want to learn how we set this all up, including how to do it if you're still using Poetry instead of UV, then this video shows you everything that you need to know. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Dang. Wow. Okay. Well, that was a rude awakening to package management, and I'm glad that things are better now. UV in Python seems like a huge step towards simplifying what's going on with Poetry. I'm no Poetry expert, so UV is going to be the first vector, the first time that I will have interacted with the build system this way. Or not the build system, but with the versioning system, I guess. Dependency management, virtual environment management. And I don't want to get caught switching to venv on the command line. That is so cringe. That's not going to happen here. We want to install and set up UV on Windows. Let's leave that for our next task. Well done, everybody. That makes up a full BUILDNESDAY here on Wednesday, where we refined our specification, I think, to a level where we're ready to develop and where we're actually defining requirements files. We're switching gears a little bit in our education stream. We need to teach ourselves UV and use UV a little bit. It looks like it's extremely straightforward. And we'll immediately employ UV to get our project set up. Thanks for joining me today. Catch me on Friday, where we will do Factory Friday. And until then,